Hello, and welcome to this video. I'm back and my hair got pinker. I mean, it's actually quite the rose gold color, or that's what it's supposed to be anyway. But needless to say, I'm really happy. I feel much more like myself, and I'm just, that's a side tangent. But today, we are doing what we love to do here on this channel, and that is playing our life. Among other things, obviously, but today we are playing Growing and Birthday. So get ready as we start with Growing. Early one afternoon, you found yourself in the living room with your family. It was another one of those summer days where it felt too hot to go outside, but was too uncomfortable to do anything inside either. So today is one of the gloomy summer days for me. So, you know what, I would have loved to have a hot summer day, but that is not the case today. The air conditioner was cranked up as far as you could negotiate it, but everyone was still being pretty lazy. You, your moms, and sister were lounging around while the TV blared on in the background, ignored by all of you. You specifically were lying spread eagle on the carpet, sitting cross-legged on the floor, pierced on the arm of the couch, draped over the coffee table. You know what? I'm a lying spread eagle on the carpet kind of gal, I guess. You stared up at the ceiling, your eyes unfocused and mind clear of all thoughts. No thoughts, head empty, yeah. Never me, though, but would be nice. Elizabeth broke the silence with a loud groan. You glanced over. She was lying on her back over the couch, massaging her calf with one hand. Ugh, I feel terrible. I'm dying in this house and my legs hurt. Mom looked up from the magazine she had barely been flipping through and frowned, concerned. Could you have strained them somehow? Elizabeth flailed briefly, then flopped onto her side with a heavy sigh. I don't know, it just hurts. Oh, sweetheart. Ma got up from her seat at the kitchen table and walked over to your sister. She did a light pat on Elizabeth's shoulder, sympathetically. I'm sorry you have to deal with that. Maybe it's growing pains? You could be taller by next fall. Elizabeth scoffed. She didn't look impressed by Ma's assessment. I'd rather be my height forever than deal with this. Mom walked over too, leaning against the back of the couch. Kids, they grow up so fast. Soon Elizabeth will have a home of her own, maybe even with a nice husband and some kids, if she feels like it. She sniffled loudly and wiped her eye. So dramatic, I love my mom. But you could tell that it was just a bit. You tilted your head. Even though you knew Elizabeth liked guys, it was hard to imagine her with a boyfriend or husband. She seemed invested in hanging out with her group of friends, not chasing after boys. Ma must agree with you, because she shook her head. Let's not exaggerate. She's practically a child. Right. But if you ever do pursue romance, Elizabeth, you can come talk to me about it. Definitely. We're always willing to lend an ear. Elizabeth's features contorted in disgust. No way! I'm not talking to my moms about that. Ma's jaw dropped. She shooketh as she gasped in an exaggerated display of shock. Her hand came up to rest against her chest. Ma only grinned. She didn't look offended by Elizabeth's quick response at all. It really wouldn't be so bad to come to us. I know what it's like to have a crush on a pretty boy or two. I don't, but I can listen anyway. Mom snorted at her own joke, while Ma burst into giggles. They were having a little too much fun at Elizabeth's expense. So yeah, that's the thing. Ma is bisexual. And it's just so nice to see. Elizabeth certainly wasn't feeling the amusement because she rolled her eyes and sat up. I'm going to my room. I'd rather melt alone, thanks. That's a bad idea. I feel like it would be even hotter in her room because it's like upstairs and everything. Anyway, she strode off towards the staircase, taking the steps two at a time. Your mom stared after her, then turned to each other with raised eyebrows. Whoops, looks like we scared her off with all that romance talk. Oh well, we'll get her next time. Mission failed. We'll get it next time, is Ma right now. You watch them titter with some surprise. Obviously, your moms liked women, but you had no idea that Mom liked guys too. Today was the first time you'd heard her say something like that. I mean, I guess it does make sense, like you would just assume, if you've never talked about it, that your mom is a lesbian because she's with a woman, but no, we do not bi-erase people in this house, so yeah. Ma, I always thought you only liked ladies. You like guys too? Ma turned to you, happy to bring you into things, now that you'd spoken up. She smiled and nodded. That's right, I like both. But I like your mom most out of everyone. She's special. They're so adorable. Ma's smile turned all soft in the corners, like it usually did when she looked at her. She pinched Mom's cheek slightly. Mom reached up to cup a hand over Ma's. Even when Ma stopped pulling her cheek, their hands remained clasped together. Thanks, Lonnie. I think most women have charm, but no one can hold a candle to you. Oh, so cute. Oh, Pamela. Ma beamed, then kissed Mom on the cheek she'd been pinching before. You laughed at their antics. You thought the moment was very sweet. You cringed. Parents were embarrassing. Honestly, it's just too sweet for me to say cringe, but I probably would cringe if it was my parents, but still. You smiled to yourself at the sight. No matter how often your moms expressed their feelings for each other, it was always nice to witness it. Ma looked to you, letting Mom's hand go with a brief squeeze. She settled down next to you, and Mom followed her soon after. You know, I'm also always here to listen to whenever you're ready. That offer isn't just for Elizabeth. In fact, I think that talk might be needed sooner for you. After all, you already have someone, isn't that right? Mom shook her head and elbowed Ma, but it was futile. Middler! You blushed fiercely. You also elbowed her. Ma! I don't have someone. Yeah, that's true. Honestly, I'd be like, Ma, are you kidding? Ma only giggled and smiled, not looking the least bit apologetic, as she shouldn't be. There's no rush, of course. You can take all the time you need to figure out what or who you want. Don't think you have to stick with whatever you come up with right now, either. Life's nice like that. It can change and you can learn. I love that. I love that so much. It's so true as well. Mom nodded her agreement. The two of us are happy to hear you out, and we may be able to relate better than you think. Still, we won't push the topic. At least, most of the time. She gave Ma the weakest scratching look possible while being unable to stop grinning. Thanks. You nodded silently. You shrugged. You don't have to worry about it. I'd rather pass on all that. No, I'll just say thanks. It is nice. I'll think about it. Good, that's all we ask for. Mom let out another exaggerated sniffle. It didn't take a genius to realize it was fake. First Elizabeth and now you, Rebecca? Do you have to grow up? Yes, children tend to do that from time to time. They are so freaking funny, I can't. Your parents quickly grew absorbed in their conversation about rearing kids. You took that as your cue to leave, getting up so you could spend some time alone in your room too. They let you go without problem, so you made your way up the stairs. You let out a sigh once you stepped into your room. It was just as sweltering in there as it was in the living room, possibly even a little warmer. Yeah, that's what I said, that's what I thought. You couldn't even open your window, since it was hotter outside and you just let the AC out. Yeah. You dragged your feet as you crossed the room. You checked your current sweltering condition in the mirror as you passed by it. You thought back to the conversation you had had downstairs about growing up and all that. After a moment, you stepped a bit closer to the mirror. You stared into it, then turned away from the surface to look down at yourself. You were definitely growing, alright. It was weird thinking about how you were now in comparison to what you'd been when you were younger. When it came to your body, it was getting some muscle definition nowadays, was chubby, was slender, was heavyset, was sort of scrawny. I've always been a skinny girl, just by nature, so I will say was slender. You shifted to the side, your head still facing forward and continuing the self-evaluation from this viewpoint. At birth you were assigned female and, At birth, you were assigned male, and at you were born intersex, and at birth, I was assigned female, and your chest was flat now, but that would likely change at least a little as you got even older. You were starting to develop breasts. You already had noticeable boobs. You aimed not to have breasts through hormone. What is hormone? Hormone therapy. I think at 13, I had noticeable boobs at 13. I'm not really sure. I was at least starting to develop, but let's just say noticeable, I guess. Notable, not noticeable. Notable. Oh, hitting my microphone. There was no mistaking it. Even with your shirt helping you to obscure your form, you have boobs now. You reached over and massaged your scar with one hand. Oh, actually, little scar that I do have on my chest. Just to prove it, I do have a scar on my chest. Anyway, staring intently at it in the mirror, by now you knew it was there to stay. You took a step backwards, finished your impromptu inspection. You locked eyes with your reflection, cocking your head to the side. All things considered, you thought you looked fantastic. You didn't look too bad. You had no idea how to feel. You were simply neutral. You were self-conscious. You just wanted to look different than you did. I didn't think I looked bad. I look fine. I've always tried to be confident and just be happy in my skin. I know it's not always easy. It definitely wasn't always easy for me either. But let's just say you didn't look too bad. A slight smile tugged at your mouth. Sure, maybe you wouldn't be a model or anything, but you weren't half bad. Yeah. You shook your head roughly, putting thoughts of what you were turning into out of your mind. This wasn't the time to focus on such things. You had to find something to do in this heat. You scuffled over to your bed, collapsing onto the mattress. Your brows scrunched up in thought. Time passed slowly, and to your annoyance, possible ideas about what to do were few and far between. You weren't sure how long it had been, but eventually you heard your mom call you from downstairs. Rebecca? There's a call for you. Cove wants to come over, is that alright? You perked up at the word, sitting up in your bed. You yelled back to her immediately. Yeah! You got to your feet and headed downstairs, eager to see your friend. You needed to go downstairs soon anyway, because your empty stomach told you it was almost time for lunch. Yeah, oh my god, I'm kind of hungry too, but it's also nearing dinner time for me, so that will be why. Just as you reached the bottom of the stairs, you saw Mom put the phone back on the receiver. She glanced at Ma, leaning her head against the kitchen counter. Well, here comes trouble. We better prepare ourselves. What in the Team Rocket is that? Ma clicked her tongue in clear disapproval of Mom's words. Not, but I don't know. He's such a good boy. Cove never wants to cause trouble. He can just be a bit thoughtless and impulsive. Oh, I know. He's very sweet, but that's what makes it more of a problem. If a stranger, some kid from school, was egging Rebecca on to behave badly, I think we can both agree that she'd do the right thing in the end. But if Cove Holden got into a reckless mood and wanted Rebecca to be a part of the ride, can we really be certain of what call she'd make then? Yes, we can, Pamela. Rebecca would do whatever Cove wanted. Not the twist. Lonnie! Your ma giggled freely at your mom's reaction. You worry too much about those two together. Look, all I'm saying is that I haven't forgotten that time they snuck out in the middle of the night when Cove was supposed to sleep over, right? Oh, that's when we were children, not when he randomly came to my house the other day. Last episode, I think it was, right? No, it wasn't last episode. That was when we started our step 2. Yeah. Ma just laughed as she turned away, still snorting. Her eyes met yours. She blinked in surprise, then waved at you with an easy grin. Mom is shook. Mom looked over, noticing you at the foot of the stairs as well. Oh, I didn't expect you to come down already, Rebecca. I just wanted to let you know what was happening. You pretended you didn't overhear their conversation. You called Mom out on her comment. We're calling her out! Well, if I hadn't come now, then I wouldn't have heard everything you said. Oh, you got caught, Bam! What? You were saying things too. I didn't say anything I wouldn't have told Rebecca directly. Oh, you're unbelievable. You shook your head at your parents. Even as you fought a blush when you remembered just what they'd been discussing. Alright, you got me. I'm sorry for gossiping and saying that about your friend. I can be bad too. I love this. I think more parents should acknowledge and apologize when they F up. I mean, this is not really effing up. She's just saying stuff, but it's nice that they can actually apologize. We'll get out of your way now. Mom sighed in mock defeat and made her way down the hall. Ma followed her with a hushed giggle. Now you were alone in the living room, tasked with waiting for Cove. Always waiting for him. And that was just fine with you. If it hadn't been so hot outside, you would have visited him at his house a long time ago. You took a seat at the kitchen counter and settled in for the wait. As expected, there was a knock on the door a few minutes later. And there he is, our main guy. When you got up and answered it, your neighbor was standing on the other side. He came in once you stepped aside to let him pass, giving a little wave. You greeted him as you typically did. With a wave, with a low five, with a nudge to the shoulder, with a noogie. So this is a noogie? Yeah, that's a noogie, I think. With a hug. No, I'm a hugger. I give a hug. He stiffened in your arms, then relaxed seconds after. One would think he'd be used to your hugs after all these years, but nah. Hey. His voice was cracked as he struggled to say something. You didn't feel worried about that. It was how he usually reacted when you were close by. Cove sighed and wiped at his face a bit. You noticed the sheen of sweat across his brow. He must be glad to be back in an air-conditioned place, even if he only had to walk across the street to get there. Yeah. Is something going on? Why'd you want to come over? I don't want to do anything, not when it's like this. He gestured vaguely to the humid air hanging around. I thought I could at least do something with you. You thought that was really sweet. How'd you know I was doing nothing? Maybe I had plans. You nodded. That made sense to you. I was thinking the exact same thing. I can't say it in that voice, whatever. You know, the TikTok or the video, whatever. You nodded. That made sense to you. You might have done the same thing. Have you had lunch yet? I was gonna do it soon. He shook his head. I haven't really felt like eating because of the heat. I probably should have lunch. I didn't have breakfast this morning. Yeah, I get like that sometimes too. You should really eat properly. You didn't eat at all? Then you gotta have something now. Great, we can eat lunch together. Let's eat lunch together. Eat lunch together. Cove nodded, looking content with your suggestion. Okay, cool. As one, you headed to the kitchen. You crossed your arms as you glanced around, wondering what you should scrounge up for a meal. I don't want to eat anything that's warmed up. Is there something cold or not cooked? Yeah. After a bit of back and forth, the two of you concluded that you should raid the fridge and cabinet in order to make sandwiches. Good idea. I mean, it's cold at least, right? Or colder. With that settled, you had planned to decide on the outside layers first. There was a wide variety to choose from, since everyone in your house had their own favorites. There was white bread, wheat bread, sourdough, mixed grains, gluten-free bread, and pita pockets. Could you take the grain one for me? Sure. You reached for the mixed grains, then made your decision. You know what? I don't care what anybody says. Oh, a lettuce wrap is yummy too, though. Oh my god, I didn't even see okay, a lettuce wrap, white bread, sourdough, mixed grains, pita pockets, gluten-free bread, cinnamon swirl bread? That sounds yummy, but I'm a savory kind of gal. I love white bread, okay? I don't care. I love white bread. Let's go. You pulled out the white bread too, setting both items onto the counter. Then you had to decide what main direction the sandwich would go in. You wanted to make a sweeter style of sandwich. You wanted to make a truly savory style of sandwich. Savory all the way. Savory over sweet. Okay, like the crocodile. Yes. I'm sorry. Savory all the way for me. Something savory would make it feel like a real meal. As for the specific ingredients, ham slices, turkey slices, tofu, hummus, egg salad, lettuce, tomatoes, red onions, cucumber, avocado, peppers, pickles, cheddar cheese, pepper jack cheese, mozzarella. All sounds so good. I'm going with some cheese, some avocado, what else would be good in there? Tomatoes, lettuce, red onions. I don't even really want some meat in there. Pepper jack cheese sounds a little spicy. Is it a little spicy? Probably. And then you moved on to condiments. For the finishing touch, you intended to top your sandwich with mayonnaise, mustard, pesto, hot sauce, salt and pepper, ranch. I've never had ranch. I'm sorry, I'm not an American, obviously. Anyway. Mayo? This might sound like a gross combination, but actually, I'm just picking things I like, I feel like. Pesto? Maybe salt and pepper? Maybe that might be a little intense. Hot sauce? Like some hot sauce? And that was everything. You nodded to yourself with a quick hum, satisfied. The two of you bustled around the kitchen, opening and closing things in order to collect everything you needed for your individual sandwiches. You focused intently on assembling your own, for the most part. When you were close to being done, though, you glanced over at your neighbor. Cove was putting his sandwich together delicately. Not dedicatedly. What the hell is that? Delicately. His brow furrowed and tongue sticking out just barely. There were open jars of peanut butter and honey near his plate, as well as a banana peel. So he was making a peanut butter, banana, and honey sandwich on mixed grain bread. That sounded great. You didn't think much of that. It seemed weird. Seemed a little weird, but not that weird. It sounded great. I wouldn't eat it, though. Because I don't like peanut butter, really. Yeah, it seemed weird. You would have at least done some things differently. Curiosity satiated, you turned back to your plate and finished your own creation. By the time you were done, Cove had already cleaned up his workstation. He turned to face you, studying your sandwich briefly. He gave it an incredulous look, but didn't question you about it. Good. Done? Yeah. Cool. He waited as you quickly returned the ingredients and cleaned a few utensils. Then the two of you collected your respective plates. You both agreed on heading upstairs to hang out in your room. Even though it's warmer up there, it's so stupid. But I get it, more privacy, I suppose. You and Cove entered your bedroom while balancing your food on the plates. Nothing fell, so it was a successful trip. Cove took a seat on the ground, stretching out on the hardwood floor in an attempt to keep a bit cooler. He immediately took a big bite of his sandwich, chewed, then hummed happily. This sandwich is really good. At least that's something. At this point, you sat down and started on your own sandwich. You nodded. You were enjoying yours too. You shrugged. It was okay. You scrunched up your face. This did not turn out as expected. I mean, I should make the sandwich right now and then no, but no. I nodded and enjoyed mine as well. Obviously, you were a pro at making sandwiches. Maybe. He leaned back on his hands while chewing and glanced around. His every movement was sluggish. Wanna do something? It seemed the plan of not doing anything at all had already worn thin, despite his lack of enthusiasm. Yeah, like what? Maybe. Not really. You couldn't even muster a reply. Maybe? He rolled his head back, looking up at the ceiling. What about Hangman? You laughed at the suggestion, but went along with it. Yeah, neither of you had much energy for something more taxing. You grudgingly humored it. You thought it was a nice idea. Sure, why not? Like literally, sure, why not? You put your plate to the side and pulled out some markers and scrap paper. As you laid everything on the floor, he scooted back to make some more room in front of you. Cove picked up one of the markers with his right hand while keeping a half slice of sandwich in his left. Can I pick the phrase? Go ahead, I don't mind. He smiled briefly before he bent over the paper and began sketching the hangman frame. Then he stopped, pursing his lips in thought. He tapped the end of his marker against his cheek. You watched silently as Cove looked down at the paper, up at your face, and then off to the side in a loop. His marker kept tapping his cheek the entire time. You raised an eyebrow. He'd suggested the game and wanted to pick the phrase, but it looked like he didn't actually have anything in mind for it. Typical. Finally, he put empty lines on the paper to signify spots for letters. Alright, you can start guessing. So what do we got here? You peered over. His secret phrase consisted of 3 words. The first 2 had 3 letters and the last 2 had 4. You thought hard about what your first guess would be. Enter 1 letter of the alphabet. Okay, so when you play hangman, it's very important to pick vowels. So like E, A, whatever. So I will choose E for my first vowel. Oh, you got one. Cool. After the first round, you were about to take another bite of your sandwich when a thought occurred to you. I wonder if anyone turned off the TV downstairs. The TV, it was on earlier, but no one was really watching. Then everyone started leaving the living room. I know I didn't turn it off. It might still be on downstairs with no one there. Cove smiled crookedly at that. Poor show. Playing with no one around to enjoy it. What was it? You squinted off into the middle distance, trying to recall the show's name. I feel like it was some kind of show solving crime, solving drama. Cove nodded sleepily, his eyes closed, then opened again with some effort. Can you give any specifics? Maybe I could guess it. Well, you rested your chin on your open palm, groggingly thinking as hard as you could. I remember there was a woman with long, blonde hair, I think? She was once solving crimes, like as a detective or something. There were scenes in a police station because someone got arrested. You lapsed into silence, the both of you thoughtful. Then Cove chuckled. It wasn't that funny, but you joined in on the laughter anyway. I don't know what that is. Me neither, and I just saw it. Oh, and now we're doing it again. And then I'm gonna go for an A. Okay, good guess. Another round came and went, and Cove grumbled as he readjusted himself. Readjusted, what is that? Readjusted himself. His features were twisted in a grimace. Ugh, I feel so sticky. Ugh, I'm gonna be stuck to this floor forever now. I'll have to charge you rent then. You can be my new roomie if you want. Looks like we'll both be stuck here forever then. I'm sticky too. No way, I'll peel you off if I have to. You just smiled at his whining. I'm sticky too. Even when we're gray and old, we'll still be right here. Yep, we have to accept our fate. You giggled under your breath at such a bizarre scenario. Cove cracked a smile as well. Then you returned to the game. Okay, and then maybe like a letter like R. I mean, I know what it's gonna say, so it's not that shocking for me, but still. Yep, that's right. Cove spoke up once more, catching your attention. He was peering down at the piece of paper between you, his expression thoughtful. You know, Hangman is kind of a creepy game. Why do people come up with it? Why did they play it? Maybe it's what they had instead of real court trials back then. I've always wondered about that. I'll have to look it up later. It's a really old game. No one's sure where the name came from. I'll have to look it up later. Maybe I'll do that too. That said, the two of you turned your attention back to the game. So I'm just gonna pick C. That's another one. By this point, Cove had finished his sandwich. Yours was almost gone too. But now you were getting thirsty. You brought it up to your neighbor. Should we go downstairs to get some drinks? I was thinking that too, but I really don't want to get up. Me neither. You looked over at him, narrowing your eyes with false suspicion. But hey, what happened to you not being able to get up ever again? 'Cause you were stuck to the floor? That's still true. I mean, we're not actually going, are we? I only thought about it. You rolled your eyes and dropped the issue defeated. Cove grinned a little at your disappointment over his victory. Let's put a U. You're really close. I mean, you can tell what it says, right? T. Yeah. Yeah. U. You're definitely gonna get it. And the O. You are cute. You are cute. That was the phrase that Cove had spent so long settling on. You stared at it. A few correct letters in, you had a feeling you knew what the phrase was. Still, you felt butterflies in your stomach at seeing it clear as day on the paper. You took in the words for a moment longer, then you looked at Cove. He had trouble meeting your shocked gaze, a smile settling awkwardly on his lips. His next words left him in a mumble. It was all I could think of at the time. You covered your face bashfully. You gave him a playful shove, still in disbelief. You stayed where you were, unable to move. You fell backwards onto the floor from your sitting position. You wrapped your arms around him. Probably would. It was instinct. You leaned over and wrapped your arms around him in a hug. You didn't say anything. No, you're cute. Thank you. I can't believe you. Damn, Go. Damn, Go. You just let out a small squeak. Just thank you. Ko smiled a bit more, clearly still feeling awkward about the move he pulled. He turned away from you, his cheeks tinted pink. A moment passed between the two of you. Now would be the perfect time to change the subject, but you didn't. He didn't either. Things started feeling a bit more personal all of a sudden. You looked into Cove's ocean eyes and saw yourself staring back. I really think you're cute, seriously. Did you mean it? Do you really think I'm cute? You didn't say anything. I really think you're cute, seriously. Cove's features softened at your words, but he remained serious. Thanks. He said exactly the same thing as me, huh? I'm into it too. Finally, he broke the eye contact. I've heard at some point you're supposed to start liking types of people. Guys, or girls, or whoever. I haven't really noticed that yet. Nothing's changed, not in a big way, not for everybody. Maybe I have to grow up more, but at least with... You waited, but he trailed off. He wasn't going to keep talking. You frowned, a little disappointed. You wished that he'd continued with what he was saying. You shook off the strangeness of the situation and tried to be supportive. Maybe you just don't like anybody, or maybe you like all types of people. That's normal too. Cove seemed to appreciate that thought, if the smile that appeared on his face lips was any indication. But the expression was quick to disappear. He peered over at you, looking nervous. Okay, what about you? What kind of guy or person do you like? He winced and seemed to be mentally kicking himself for saying it like that. You considered his question carefully. Did you know who or what you liked? You were starting to have physical attraction in a general way. You only seemed to feel physically attracted in specific cases and situations. You didn't really have a physical interest in other people. You didn't think you could tell if you had an interest in people physically. There was only one person you'd ever have those kinds of feelings for. You were starting to have physical attraction in a general way. You were starting to have a romantic attraction in a general way. You only seemed to feel romantic attraction in specific cases and situations. You didn't think you could tell if you had an interest in people romantically. There was only one person you'd ever had romantic feelings for. I started in a general sense, but specifically, when it came to how you felt towards boys, you found them attractive. You thought you'd be happy to be with a guy someday. You found them attractive, but you hadn't thought about being with a guy. You weren't physically interested, but you'd be happy to have a romantic relationship with a guy. You generally weren't interested in guys, but there were special exceptions. Now, I like guys. I like guys too. So, you thought you'd be happy with a guy someday. And how you felt towards girls? You found them attractive. You thought someday you'd be happy with a girl. You found them attractive, but you hadn't thought about being with a girl. You weren't physically interested, but you'd be happy to have a romantic relationship with a girl. You weren't interested in girls. You generally weren't interested in girls, but there were special exceptions. So, I'm bisexual, so I would be happy with a girl someday as well. For people who weren't exclusively male or female, this is the same just for non-binary. You found them attractive, but you hadn't thought about being with someone non-binary. You weren't physically interested, but you were happy to be in a relationship with someone non-binary. You weren't interested in someone non-binary. You genuinely weren't interested in someone who's non-binary, but there were special exceptions. This I don't care about either, so I guess I am more pansexual than bisexual, but whatever. It's what I heard the first time, and this is what I feel I'm identifying with, so whatever. Let's just say yes. I would also do that, of course. You returned your attention to Cove. He was waiting patiently for your response. You explained how you felt to Cove. I'd rather not talk about it. We'll explain it to him. He listened intently, taking in every word as you tried to convey how you felt. He definitely perked up a bit when you mentioned having some interest in romantic relationships. Then he snatched the back of his head sheepish. I'm not really sure how we ended up talking about all this when we started just playing hangman. But it was good, I think. I think so too, you shrugged. It was awkward. The conversation had a mind of its own. You just nodded quietly. I think so too. Cove chuckled a little bashfully. He glanced around, clearly scrambling for something else to say. So, have you gone to the beach recently? Yeah, actually, I'm glad you brought it up. The conversation took a lighter turn after that, and it felt like you guys got closer that afternoon. Finally, the blazing sun began to set. To your relief, the air cooled down a bit as a result. You pulled yourself off the floor, as did Cove, with some minor complaint. You both stretched your arms, groaned, and yawned into your hands. You glanced out your window briefly, taking in the soft reds, pinks, and purples of the late afternoon sky. So gorgeous. Somehow, you had made it through the scorching hot day in one piece. One piece! Cove turned towards you, motioning towards your window with his chin. Wanna go outside? It might be better out there than it is here now. Sounds good. I could really use some fresh air. The two of you took your time heading downstairs. You stopped briefly to grab a drink of water, then continued on your way. You stepped outside, one after the other, your destination being the familiar hills behind your house. This time of day, it was quiet outside. The flowers blew gently in the wind, petals trembling, but stubbornly hanging in there. You felt the breeze cool your heated skin, and you relaxed your shoulders. Cove closed his eyes, releasing a deep breath. I really love it out here. I do too. You do? That's surprising, you said jokingly. Your opinion sure has changed since you were first on this hill. You quietly enjoyed the moment. Cove smiled. It was clear that he was enjoying it too. A beat passed, but his gaze didn't stray from your own. His voice was impossibly soft when he spoke up again. I'm glad I met you, Rebecca. You're really important to me, you know. You blushed at the statement. I feel the same. That's so nice of you to say. You smiled silently. You're being too sweet. You're special to me, Cove. You are special to me, Cove. Your voice came out equally delicate. From the way his features brightened, though, you knew he heard you. Then Cove reached over and held your hand without another word. Even as the sun disappeared completely and the sky darkened, you and Cove remained side by side for as long as you possibly could. And that was growing. But now, let's go to birthday. Wow, it's a birthday going on. It was a pleasant afternoon. The sun shone brightly, and the breeze tugged lightly at the balloons strung across the park, around the park. You and Cove had just been dropped off at Miranda Eckert's birthday party. I'm not really sure how you say that last name. Eckert's? You didn't really know Miranda. Last year was the first time you had class with her, and everyone at school knew her as quiet. The shy girl stuck to her own friend group like glue. It had been a surprise that she was having such a big party. You looked around the expansive park, a spacious recreation center in the next town over, and noticed a bouncy castle. Miranda had a bit of a reputation for not caring, as if she acted mature like other teens sometimes did. I love that. Go, Miranda. It made a certain amount of sense that her party would match that. I mean, I had monster highs at like 13, 14, and I still do, so I don't care. Anyway, you thought Miranda was sweet. You thought Miranda was weird. You didn't have any opinion of Miranda yet. You wanted to get to know Miranda better. Yeah. Maybe at this party, you'd have the chance to make friends with her. You were excited at the thought. You hadn't had a choice in coming here today. Your moms insisted on it after you got the invitation, as did Cove's mom and dad. So both you and he were driven over to the next town with presents in tow. All the parents had been pretty firm about going to a birthday if you'd been invited. You agreed it was best to attend. You wondered if it was an adult thing. You were happy to be there. You wished you were somewhere else. You felt out of place. You were willing to give it a chance. Let's give it a chance. It's probably fun. You had just arrived at the party after all. You couldn't see the future. It could turn out to be fun, or it could be a disaster. You would wait and see. Cove made a small noise, which caught your attention. He looked around, scanning the area. He fidgeted with his gift in his hand. Any idea what we're supposed to do with these? You looked at your own present and then towards the seating area. There was a table filled with snacks and drinks, supplies for various party games. Past all that, you spotted one table in the back that seemed to have a truckload of gifts. You pointed it out to Cove. Let's stop the presents over there. Cove nodded with a smile and turned to where you gestured. He saw it too. Cool. You and Cove began to walk over to the present table, flattening the well-trimmed glass beneath your feet. I just said glass! Grass! You walked past groups of people, classmates in semicircles broken up into the usual friend groups, chatted away. You, or maybe Cove, received the occasional greeting or friendly nod. However, as you passed by even more people than you had ever seen before, you became aware that there were more strangers here than not. It was more crowded than you expected. Miranda Eckert, the quiet girl, was hosting the most populated birthday party you had been to in a long time. You looked at the new faces and thought you saw something of Miranda in them. Cousins, nephews, nieces, maybe. Parties could be a big deal in her family. The both of you reached the table. You set your gift down in an empty space, brushing some confetti aside, and Cove placed his gently next to it. He looked at the present thoughtfully. Hey, what did you get her? Before you had a chance to answer, Cove opened his mouth again and tapped his gift. I found this sparkly backpack. I figured she could use it for a school trip or for school or a trip or something. Your moms had taken you out shopping the other day. You'd searched through the store and ultimately, you picked out a stuffed animal, you grabbed a necklace and a bracelet set, you found a lighthearted adventure book, you chose a yarn craft kit that made a toy. You let your moms pick. Your moms didn't appreciate what you had picked and chose something else. Oh my god, what did we do? No, let's just say we gave her a necklace and a bracelet set. That sounds really cute. You thought you remembered Miranda wore jewelry, simply thin bracelets strung up and down her arm. Hopefully she had enjoyed the pieces you chose. The silver-colored bracelet had different pink charms, jangling hearts and kittens, while the princess-length necklace had a similar heart for its centerpiece. It was a cute set, much more adorable than adult. You described it to Cove briefly, and he had no objections. Not a bad idea! He brushed his hands against the sides of his pants. I really hope Miranda likes her gifts, but I think we both did good. With that, he gave you a sunny grin. He touched the gift one more time and then stepped away. Without the direction of needing to put stuff away, the two of you weren't sure what to do next. You felt a little awkward, and Cove shrunk in on himself as you looked around. There were more guests heading to the present table, so you turned away and wandered over to the nearby tree, where you wouldn't be in the way. From there, you both inspected the area and planned the next step. You were glad that Cove had been invited too. At least you had his company in this unfamiliar place. You watched him and he gave you a nervous grin. It reassured you a little and you smiled back. What next? Cove did not appreciate being put on the spot, I feel you. He was just as unsure as you were. Birthday party stuff? It didn't seem to be time for cake, what with people still arriving. Nothing else seemed to be organizing yet either. He noticed that himself and tried again. We could find Miranda? That was an idea. It made sense to greet the birthday girl. Oh, we could say hello. Wish her a happy birthday. Ask her what she wants people to do. Sounds good. With that point, it was decided. The Miranda hunt had begun. You wandered around. Anytime you saw someone with Miranda's hair color, you got a little closer, but more than once it turned out to not actually be her. Hey, look! Finally, he pointed over to the real Miranda. She smiled slightly when you both approached, but ducked her head. She seemed a little overwhelmed with being the center of attention today, but it's your birthday, girl! Hi, Cove. Hi, Rebecca. Happy birthday! Happy birthday! Thanks! I'm really glad you could come. You all stood awkwardly. Miranda did seem genuinely happy, but there was still a distance between you. This is a great looking party. Thank you. Is there something we need to do, or should we just hang out? Oh, well...
Talk to people, if you want. There are games that are gonna start soon.
She said it for me. And the bounce house should open later if you feel like jumping. Then after that, it's cake and present time. We'll have ice cream too. After that is when people will start going home. I hope that's okay with you guys. Cove nodded. He seemed a little more confident about the situation now. Thanks for letting us know. You grinned at her and she nodded back. Miranda waited there and you became hyper aware of the silence forming. You heard a shout for a Randy and Miranda brightened up. I told a 180 with how stiff she had been with you. I've got to talk to some more people. Bye, she said it again. The birthday girl ran off to her friend, leaving you and Cove with at least a little more idea of what to expect. You both glanced at each other wordlessly. You felt a little disappointed. It was going to be hard to get to know Miranda better with how in demand she was probably going to be today. Hopefully, you could get to talk with her later. All that was left now was finding something to fill the time until the activities began. You tried to chat with the people around. You just talked with Cove. You found a quiet spot to sit. You just stood around where you were. Could talk to Cove. You started talking about how you felt about this kind of birthday party and what you wanted to do for your next party. Cove made the occasional suggestion. The conversation became silly as you started joking about ridiculous party ideas. Cove wanted a moon party, and you wondered if anyone ever tried to make a cake big enough to be the party location. What? Suddenly, a loud voice boomed over the crowd. The constant buzz of conversation dropped as one of the adults, maybe Miranda's dad, asked the kids to gather around because it was game time. I wonder what's gonna happen. You shrugged. You scanned the area to make a guess. You made a joke about something that wasn't going to happen. Just be jokey. We're gonna play high-stakes poker. It's obvious. Obvious, huh? Look at this crowd. Most of the guests were teenagers around your age, but there were also quite a few of adults and some younger kids. Cove nodded sagely at the group of little kids. Yeah, those are high rollers. Yep. The adult announced that the children under 10 had the first turn on the bounce house. For everyone else, it was time to play pin the tail on the donkey. Cove raised his eyebrows. He was surprised for sure. You were excited. You thought it was kind of silly. You were a little weirded out. You were fine with that game. You didn't know how this would go. I was fine. You didn't have anything against pin the tail on the donkey. It would probably turn out okay. You casually stepped up to join the line. The donkey in question was a cartoony poster with big eyes that looked more like ping pong balls. It was positioned a few feet above the ground on a tree trunk. The teen who arrived first was blindfolded and then spun around. He was nudged to the sign and away from the other kids so he wouldn't stick someone with the tail instead. Unfortunately for him, he placed the tail on the donkey's head like some kind of bizarre earring. He wouldn't be winning that far from the target. No, sadly not, unless he did better than anyone else. His next opponent did far better by landing it on the donkey's back. The spectators clapped politely and the line moved up. More teens tried their hand at it. Some got closer than others, but no one had gotten it perfectly yet. Soon it was Cove's turn. He was blindfolded and spun just like the others. At this point, it was a close match and everyone was watching with bated breath. Cove approached the donkey and stuck the tail on without any hesitation. Cove stood back and removed his blindfold, cheering when he saw how close he was. He turned his head over his shoulder and grinned at you. Your turn. You shook your head and stepped out of line. You took your turn. With the blindfold on, the bright park became utterly dark. As you were spun around, the sounds around you seemed to get louder. At least you could tell the direction of the bounce house from the shrieks of the younger children. You stopped spinning and stepped forward, tail in hand. It was time to give it a stab. You placed it directly in front of you. You placed it to the right. You placed it to the left. You reached and placed it up. You bent and placed it downward. Let's do it to the right, to the right. You pressed the tail onto the target and stepped back. You took your blindfold off to check your results. There was some more clapping from the audience. The tail wasn't too far off. Behind you, there was a particularly enthusiastic ooh! Oh no. And a few people mentioned how close you got. You smiled and looked back at Cove. He seemed amused. His tail wasn't off by much either, and you couldn't tell which of you were winning. They were just too close, too nearby each other. A few more kids took their turn. One girl managed to somehow pin the tail on the opposite side of the tree. You were pretty sure it had to be on purpose. With the line empty, the game was finally over. The adults running things started to inspect the donkey. At this point, the sign was more tails than donkey. After your name was announced, everyone cheered and clapped for you once more. What the hell, did I win? You came up to the front and the man gave you a handful of candy as a prize for the victory. Thank you. As you shoved the candy into your pockets, Cove walked up to you. Congrats on the win. You were humble about it. You felt bashful over winning. You reveled in the win. We were humble. Stay humble, like Kendrick said, okay? I'm not amazing. It was probably luck. Maybe you'll win next time. Uh-huh. You got really close. He shook his head with a rueful smile. Thanks, Rebecca. But it's alright. That was your win. You offered to share the candy with Cove. You kept the prize. No, we're sharing. It's Karen. Do you want some? His sparkling eyes told you yes. You held out a lollipop, and Cove accepted it carefully. It was a mystery flavor, so you had no idea if he'd like it or not. He unwrapped the treat, and it was a swirl of pale blue and translucent green. Cove gave it a tiny lick. What's it taste like? Your victory. It's kind of funny. And berries, I think. You both laughed at that, and you gave him more candies. An older teen walked up, tall enough to power over you and Cove. You felt a little intimidated by his stern-faced teenager until she started to speak. Her voice was low but friendlier than her tough frown would suggest. Hi, I'm handing out party favors. Do you want one? She showed you party hats. She insisted they were the key to a true partying mood. She had two options, either a colorful headband with two tiny party hats arranged almost like ears, or a tiara with stars on it. They were both very festive. No thanks. You knew the teen hadn't actually glared at him. Her default facial expression just seemed grim. She had a resting bitch face, it's not her fault. You wanted one of the headbands. You picked a crown. You didn't want. Let's get a crown. You pointed to the crown, and the teenager passed it over to you with the solemnness of crowning a monarch. Then you encouraged Cove to pick one. Then you let her go. No, if he doesn't want to, he doesn't want to. Both of you had made your decision, and that was it. The unknown teenager nodded approvingly at you both and went to pass out hats to more people. You put the party hat on your head with a smile, and it fitted well. It was, what? It was surprisingly comfortable. It really completes your look. When did you get so fashionable? He smirked and just adjusted to your new accessory. You just adjusted to a new accessory. I'm a party animal now. It does look very good on me, thanks. I don't know why I'm doing this. I'm a party animal now. Really? Of course. Cove nodded with a thoughtful look on his face. If the party spirit is contained in party hats, does that mean they're haunted? You snorted at the suggestion. You considered the hat on your head. It didn't seem haunted, but maybe that was what it wanted you to think. After that, the people in charge quickly set up the next game. Teenagers milled about it until they were told to find partners. You tried to listen to the rules, straining your ears to listen to the adult announcing what you were supposed to do. It was a simple game. One person in a pair would throw candy while the other had to catch it with their mouth. If they caught it, the pair would move on to the next round, where everyone would take a step back and the former catcher would become the thrower. The game would continue, the players getting further and further, until one set of partners were the only ones left standing, or everyone lost in a round. About half of the guests had already found partners. They moved fast. You noticed Cove had his eyes on you. Could we be partners? Neither of you were all that familiar with everyone else here. It'd be a safe choice to pair up. You agreed to be Cove's partner. I don't want to play. No, let's just agree. It's fine. It's a party. Let's do it, partner. Cool. He beamed and you started wondering about your respective candy catching capabilities. Two rows of players facing each other formed. Cove tilted his head towards them, and you started to head over. You both lined up directly in front of each other. It took a while to pass out the candy. You were handed a small bag of gummies that smelled strongly fruity. You noticed Cove took it upon himself to do a taste test of a red one across from you. They're not bad. You noticed— oh, damn. They're not bad. You should have waited. You tried one for yourself. What did it taste like? Raspberry. Or cherry. It's red, so... Strawberry? Maybe. Pomegranate? It was a mystery. Maybe you'd get a red one later. And then it was time to begin. Cove's row was set to throw first. He smiled nervously, his eyes wide with seriousness. We are winning this! You grinned, and Cove's smile looked more genuine and less filled with tenseness. The game was on! The adult in charge shouted for the throwers to go. You and Cove were only a couple of feet away from each other. With Cove's careful toss, you caught the candy easily. Like you, most of the other players moved on to the next round. There were few gaps in the rows as everyone took a step back. The round was harder with pairs further back, but not overly so. It could be done with both partners tried. You did your best as you tossed it. You had fun with it, but still tried. You threw the candy without a care. You made sure it missed. You had fun with it, but still tried. You grabbed a candy and wanted to do a trick shot. Cove must have noticed something in your expression because he raised an eyebrow. You threw the blue candy from hand to hand, then high in the air. Very quickly, it was coming down. You slapped it towards Cove. He jerked to the side to catch it. Despite his worry, your shot had landed true. Cove laughed with amazement at your toss, or the fact that he had caught it, or possibly both. From his face, you know he was at least excited to get to the next round. The next round began, and you took another step back. Cove was even further away now, but he had made an okay sign. He was in this to win it. As you should. Oh man, he's got his game face on for real. Around you, the once packed rows of players had thinned out some. You wondered how many rounds everyone had left in them. Cove swung his arm and made eye contact with you. You nodded, and then a green candy flew towards you. You tried your best to catch it. You casually tried to catch the candy. You refused to have a green candy in your mouth. I mean, what's wrong with green candy, really? I mean, the green M&M is the best one anyway. I don't know what I'm talking about. You did not try to catch it. We tried your best, for real. You followed the arc of the candy and opened your mouth wide. It had a slight spin on it, and you tilted your head to the left to compensate. We did it! You bit down on the candy, grinning with your victorious catch. Rah! It tasted sweet and vaguely like a Slurpee. Yay, Rebecca! Cove was thrilled. He was entirely invested in the game at this point. Why does he look mad? Oh, he doesn't look mad. He still has his game face on. You and Cove were still in the game. You knew this was the final round. Only a few other pairs were still left. Cove was determined to win. You could see it in the clench of his jaw, the careful way he watched you. You were charmed by his attitude. You equally wanted to win. You didn't want to let him down. You thought this was kind of funny. You felt nervous under the pressure. Yeah, I equally wanted to win. You made it this far. It's time to go all the way. You looked around at your remaining competitors and prepared yourself. Cove gave you a firm grin, and you prepared to throw. Your fingers grabbed an orange gummy from the bag. It felt solid in your grasp, even if your hand was starting to get sticky from touching all the sugary sweets. Right. Cove leaned his face towards you and bent his knees ready to catch. The time came. You looked at the candy and then Cove. You tried your best. You threw it casually. You messed up your throw on purpose. No, we are always trying our best. The candy flew like a missile straight toward him. Cove almost stumbled forward trying to get it right, but your aim was perfect. He got it into his mouth. A wide grin spread on his face as Cove victoriously chomped down on the candy. Yes! Along with the cheer, he jumped up in excitement and pumped one arm. You look to your left and then to your right. You see the few remaining pairs walking away, commiserating over their losses. With some shock, you realized that you and Cove were the only ones who made it that round. You won! You watched the moment Cove clicked into the same realization. His face brightened like sunshine and he jogged over to you to close the distance between you. You stepped closer to meet him halfway. You high-fived Cove. You put an arm around Cove. You jumped into a hug. You ruffled Cove's hair. You nudged him in a friendly way. You smiled at him. No, we jump into a hug! His eyes went big when he realized you were going for a hug. He smiled and caught you, hugging you back tightly. You'd won this together! He giddily stomped his feet in place in front of you, as though he couldn't contain his energy. We did it! You adjusted the hat that had nearly fallen off throughout the event. Nice catch! Woo! We demolished the competition. We demolished them! The game runner strolled over and merely gave you both a bunch more candy on top of letting you keep the gummy bags. It was quite the collection. Cove must be happy because he loved a bit of candy. Cove laughed over just how much candy you had both acquired. Between this game and the pin the tail on the donkey, you were swimming in sugar now. Yes. With the candy toss over, you were going to need something else to do. You didn't have to wait long. You heard someone in the crowd shout that the bounce house was officially open for the older kids. You and Cove shared a look. Cove smiled and you knew he wanted in. You both ran over to the bouncy castle. I have not been in a bouncy castle for years, as I am 23, so of course that's not very appropriate, I suppose. And kicked your shoes off. You crawled into the inflated castle with Cove hot on your heels. There were a couple of other teens inside already. You started to get a feel of bouncing. Cove hopped from the middle to the side and back. Just after you landed from a particularly high jump, someone else snuck in. It was the birthday girl herself. Hi, Miranda. Hello. Hi, birthday girl. You waved. You just glanced at her. Miranda? Hi, birthday girl. Miranda looked happy. She wanted both her hands at you with a megawatt grin. What? I hope you're having fun. She hopped around with her hands in front of her like a kangaroo. It was a surprisingly effective way to clear distance in the bounce house. Then she jumped high, kicking both her legs out to the side and touched the tips of her toes with her fingers. Whoa! Miranda hadn't run out of tricks yet. She jumped a couple more times, gaining height, before doing a kickflip and tucking into a ball. She managed to land on her feet, but didn't stick the landing. She tumbled back and fell on her butt. Cove clapped and Miranda inclined her head, almost like a bow. She was back to jumping in no time. You're so good at this! She bounced close enough to the two of you without shouting across the way. Cove's bouncing slowed down to accommodate their conversation. My family gets these every year, and we have a trampoline in the backyard. You're so lucky, Miranda. That's really cool. I want to do flips too. You nodded along with the conversation. You clapped at her stunts. Let's clap at her. Miranda giggled a bit and then her eyes sparkled. Hey, I can launch someone if you want. If I jump in front of you, then your bounce will go higher. Okay, launch me. Not me. I'd rather just watch. You remain silent. I'd rather just watch. It's a little scary. That's okay, we can still have fun. Can you launch me? Miranda didn't hesitate. She started jumping with more force and getting closer to Cove. Of course! You watched as Miranda told Cove how he'd get the best results. She gave him a count and tried to time it so that he'd jump right when she touched down. You stood a few feet away, but even then, you caught some of the energy from their bounces. The bounce house's floor rippled slightly under your feet. Cove took turns launching Miranda after you understood how it worked. She, in turn, did tricks that wouldn't be possible without the added height. It was exciting to watch. You all had fun bouncing around. You twirled, Miranda did stunts. Cove futilely tried to touch the highest tip in the castle's ceiling. You and Cove chatted to Miranda more than you had ever at school. She truly was the queen of this bouncy castle. Whenever someone did something cool, everyone would cheer. If you fell, the others would help you up. Eventually, more people wanted to take turns in the bounce house, so you and Cove left. As you slipped on your shoes, you saw Miranda get drawn into conversation with a group of adults. She would be talking to them for a while. You and Cove decided to take a break and hydrate. You went to the party table and grabbed some ice water. Cove handed you a party noisemaker he'd picked from the same table. He blew on his and it made a funny sound when it unrolled. Cove downed his drink in a couple gulps. He had gotten pretty into bouncing after all. You were still sipping on your water when Cove blew his noisemaker again, then again, and again. It was almost a tune. You don't recognize any particular melody, but a noisemaker also isn't an instrument. The noise cut through the hum of the other party guests, loud and noticeable. You asked Cove to stop. You started blowing on your own noisemaker. You blew your noisemaker back at Cove's. You were amused by Cove's antics. You laughed, and Cove started blowing it more towards you. He leaned in so that the tip of the unfurled paper nearly bopped your nose. You stepped back and shook your head fondly. You blew your noisemaker. You told him to cut it out! You jokingly tried to get away. You slid to the side and dramatically dodged his noisemaker. He followed you and struck again with a particularly loud doot. Doot, doot, doot. You laughed when he missed and tried not to yell when he got close.
You people again.
Yikes.
Oh, great! You people again!
Someone vaguely familiar shouted, and you snapped your head to the side. Cove's noisemaker dropped from his mouth. The speaker stepped up, and there was no doubt. It was Jeremy. That mean boy you met at the start of summer. You groaned at the sight of him. Oh hey, it's the Bullkite kid. You felt very uncomfortable and didn't know what to do. You instantly got angry at his presence. You tried to ignore Jeremy being there. You tried being polite. Let's try to be polite. Hi, how are you? Your greeting went unacknowledged and Jeremy's scowl didn't change. Why are you here? Cove's tone was defensive. You watched Jeremy's face turn slack as if Cove's question was the idiocy above all idiocies.
Didn't I already explain this?
He hadn't, so both you and Cove exchanged a look.
Do you have memory loss? Or are you really that stupid? Seriously? I didn't walk here. My parents brought me. Apparently, I couldn't just stay inside like I wanted. No, they insisted that I get out and enjoy the day and have fun on vacation. Blah, blah, blah.
He said enjoy the gay. The gay? Well, yeah, enjoy the gay. He said enjoy the day and have fun on vacation. Like some people would say, scrub the entire bathroom or listen to an off-key singer for 10 hours.
They found a park, 'cause I hate the beach. Too bad I also hate parks. Ugh, it's dirty here. They don't know anything. Oh, and then they saw the stupid party and decided to bother some adults by asking what's going on. They think maybe we could be included. It's moronic. Get it now? That's how my parents are. Annoying and embarrassing. Why would anyone want strangers at their birthday? Why can't they ever just leave things alone?
He huffed loudly, and his eyes shot daggers at some grown-ups that presumably were his parents. Yeah, that's really awkward. That doesn't sound very bad. All you can do is complain about it. Sucks to be you. You tried to be friendly and welcome Jeremy to the park. You didn't bother trying to respond to that mess of a rant. Well, let's try to be friendly. Well, you're here now, maybe you can make the best of it. It's a good response. Them's his fighting words. Okay.
And maybe you can shut your dumb face.
Jeremy's eyes slipped away from you to take in the rest of the park for a bit. It was a little awkward. It was possible he didn't even know what to do. But then he spoke again.
How can people really go around in these embarrassing party hats? Do they think it's fun or something? How could a human being be so dumb?
Jeremy shook his head and glanced at Cove's lack of head.
I guess that's one brain part for you.
It's just kind of nice to do party stuff. Jeremy scoffed, unimpressed. The expression on his face was as nasty as he spoke.
I'm not surprised that an empty-headed person like you would do that.
Jeremy looked you over, completely dismissive. It's so rude you can't help but feel offended. Obviously, he's so mean. Cove's face hardened. He seemed more offended than anyone actually insulted him personally.
Just because you don't know how to be happy doesn't mean no one else does. And it's not your fault you hate everything. It's not okay for you to take it out on Rebecca. She isn't doing anything wrong. You are.
Jeremy seemed unfazed by Cove's defense and sniffed.
Rebecca can humiliate herself on her own. She doesn't need you to step in and do it for her.
Oh, there's honestly, I've never done any of these things that are like, whatever. You poured your drink on Jeremy. Oh, you punched Jeremy. You pushed Jeremy. You punched Jeremy in the face. You drowned out his words with your noisemaker. You stood still shocked. You teared up. Honestly, As a teen, I think I would just tear up, but I should go back and try to punch him in the face just sometime. I'm not even sure if it actually happens, but whatever, we'll just tear up because what the hell? Tears started to moisten your cheeks. Jeremy showed no sign of remorse, he just grimaced.
How are you gonna live in the real world if this is too much?
It's just mean. You're a dick. You're ruining someone's party. I'm gonna find your parents and tell them what's going on. Don't say anything like that ever. You laughed at his reaction. You said nothing. Yeah, maybe I would at this point. People were starting to watch what was going on. Your argument wasn't exactly quiet at this point. Why don't you just leave us alone if we're so awful? Jeremy glanced even more and huffed.
Talking to you is pointless, dumbasses.
Exactly. You dumbass? You're the dumbass? Whatever. I don't know why I'm so upset. He stalked off like the last time you saw him, muttering under his breath. Cove sighed in relief after Jeremy was gone. He relaxed, but only for a moment. He noticed just how much attention you'd drawn from the other guests. Luckily, it hadn't gone on long enough to get a real crowd. A concerned adult in a blue button-up shirt approached you and asked who that was and if everyone was alright. I'm fine. Cove looked at you cautiously, asking just as much as the adults if you were okay. Everything's fine now, you don't have to worry about us. The concerned adult lingered for a few seconds but nodded and left you alone. The Jeremy fiasco was officially over. Cove rubbed his eyes, clearly ready to pull all that nonsense behind him. Then he started laughing. It was a surprise laugh, breaking out of his chest without any actual joy. It was nervous and disbelieving at all the complex emotions brought about one more meeting with Jeremy.
I can't believe it.
He spoke in fits and starts.
How can Jeremy be like that? He shouted at us, he barely knows us, and it was at a birthday party for someone else he's never met.
You agreed Jeremy's totally nuts. You wished that he had done something more. You hoped that you would never see him again. You weren't sure how to feel. You were just happy Jeremy was gone. You felt sad that he was so mean. Yeah. Does he really always have to be that way? Cove seemed to think about what his next words carefully before he spoke.
I don't think it matters what we do around him. Jeremy's just gonna yell no matter what. We shouldn't worry about it. Do you wanna tell your moms about Jeremy? I mean, he always picks a fight. Maybe they know how to handle someone like him.
Thanks for asking. You decided to bring it up to your moms later. You wanted to keep this between you and Cove. Maybe bring it up to your moms later. I'll let them know everything.
Okay.
Finally, you bent over to pick up the noisemaker that Cove dropped when Jeremy appeared. It might be too dirty to use now, but you didn't want to leave it there. He accepted it softly when you offered the little favor back to him.
Thanks, Rebecca.
I like how we can be there for each other. It makes me feel better about that kind of stuff when it happens. Yeah. Cove suggested that you should find a seat at one of the tables. It was almost cake time and you wanted to be prepared. It was a good reminder that the party wasn't over yet. There's a free table there. Let's get ready for some cake. You and Cove tried to settle down after the last event. You took seats across from each other at one of the park tables. There were a few attempts to chat, but for the most part, you simply watched the adults run around to set up the cake cutting. There was a minor panic when who you assumed was Miranda's dad apparently forgot the lighter for the candles. He and another man went through and started asking the other adults for matches or lighters. They weren't having any luck until the grim-faced teenager who had been passing out party hats pulled a green lighter out of the ice cream cooler. Why the lighter was put in the cooler remained a mystery, but with party hat girls find it was time to get things going again. Miranda sat at the head of the longest table. A large chocolate cake was set in front of her. She lit all 14 candles with the cooler lighter with a big smile. The adults started singing Happy Birthday and the rest of the guests joined in. At the end of the song, Miranda blew out the candles with a dedicated huff. She closed her eyes and you saw her silently mouth something. Maybe it was a birthday wish. Miranda cut her own slice, then one of the grown-ups took over cutting the cake. Another adult passed around plates of cake slices with a scoop of vanilla ice cream for the guests. Eventually, the cake got around to you and Cove. Cove was pleased with the treat in general. The cake looked rich and moist. It smelled quite chocolatey. You only wanted to eat the ice cream. You only wanted the cake. You wanted both the cake and the ice cream. You didn't want anything on your plate. I mean, both is so good. When it's like a dense and really decadent chocolate cake, it's so good with ice cream. You took a bite of ice cream. The vanilla wasn't bad, but it was a little bland. The chocolate cake, however, was a rich flavor. Cove then took his fork and started mashing up some of his cake. When the cake resembled a pile of crummy chunks, he started mixing it into the ice cream. The melted parts of the ice cream made a kind of chocolate cake soup. You raised your eyebrow. You told him you'd do the same thing. You thought it looked gross. I've never done that, but I want to now. You didn't react. Kinda wanna do that now. How does it taste?
Really good, but it's better with brownies.
He grinned and took a bite of his own mix. Cove contently chowed down on his concoction. One advantage to his mix is that the ice cream seemed to catch most of the crumbs that would usually fall from eating a cake. Unlike some of the kids around him, Cove's shirt remained clean. You started eating your dessert in earnest. You enjoyed yourself plenty. Cove suddenly put his fork down on his plate and stared up to the sky with a faraway expression. You checked, but didn't see anything attention-grabbing.
This ice cream is better than those ones in cups. You know, with the little wooden spoons? But I still kind of want that instead.
You remembered what kind he was talking about. Oh yeah, like the ones handed out at the barbecue before the fireworks happened.
Right.
Cove smiled nostalgically at the thought. You could picture a younger Cove for a moment with the same look in his eyes. You offered him a bite of your dessert. You asked him if you could have a bite of his dessert. You smiled about the memory to yourself. Miranda then started to open her gifts. She systematically attacked the mountain of presents like a pro. She checked for any cards and read them loudly before opening a gift. She smiled at every present, including the ones you and Cove got her. You were glad the presents were accepted. It took time, but eventually Miranda got through all the gifts. She was very sweet and polite throughout it all. The party went until the sun began to set. By that point, most of everything had settled down and people had begun to leave. Any of the guests whose parents had stayed for the party were already gone, except for Miranda's family. Only a few kids still waiting for their parents to come to get them remained, you and Cove included. Miranda's family were cleaning up, and as a guest, neither you nor Cove were supposed to help with that. Instead, you both had decided to take it easy in the bouncy castle. It was somewhere out of the way where you could casually wait for your ride. Miranda had also elected to hang out with you. You weren't even bouncing anymore. Cove laid on his side with his back to a wall, and Miranda sat across from him with her legs stretched out. You also made yourself comfortable. It was nice and warm in the little building. It also felt like you had some privacy, which was nice. You could all speak openly here.
Thanks for coming.
She looked down but continued shyly.
It's been really cool to get to hang out with you a little bit. Thanks for letting me come. I didn't think I'd be invited.
Thanks for me too, Miranda. Yeah, I wasn't expecting it either. I'm so happy I could come. You shrugged. You chose not to respond. Thanks for me too, Miranda. Miranda just smiled a little more.
So, did you notice anything happened earlier with some people you didn't know showing up?
She had to think about this question a little. It was apparent that she didn't have an encounter with Jeremy, since there was no instant recognition.
I heard about something. Some other parents were talking to my parents when their kid came and forced them to leave the park.
She tilted her head to the side, finding it weird but also not important.
Then everyone had cake and ice cream.
Cole smiled uncomfortably.
That's good.
He was clearly worried that the Jeremy confrontation had gotten to her. Luckily, it didn't seem that anyone had overheard or passed along Jeremy's cruel words. Cove rolled over in his bed and sighed contently. Miranda seemed confused, but wasn't going to push. You got up and started bouncing again. You laid back and closed your eyes to rest. You changed the subject. You told her about the ordeal. No, just change the subject. What are you gonna do with all those gifts? It had been a mountain of stuff. Miranda laughed.
I don't know.
Yeah, she said it. Cove gave a bent smile and made a suggestion.
You can carry some in the backpack you got.
She giggled and clapped her hands with delight. That's true. You all continued chatting in a laid-back manner until it was time to go home. At the end of the day, you thought it had been quite the party. Now, that was growing and birthday. And honestly, what a great time. Also, a long one yet again. I think these episodes are just gonna be a bit longer. You're just gonna have to deal with that. But next time, we will be doing family and summer work. So, with all that being said, I will say thank you so much for watching this episode as well. If you have watched the previous ones. If not, there's a playlist, don't worry. And I will hopefully see you guys in the next video. Bye!